2019 Edu Room Challenge. Can we? Cannot connect. Something okay. While let's start at least getting to know ourselves before, well, as we put that together. So welcome to this session. We think we need to get to know each one of you. Okay. No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Ajide and Dr I'm also in Val, in the Samoa, and I'm just starting my third year this month. It's not been a great journey, I must say. I'm pushing. I'm pushing. Yes, Dr. Samuel is my second supervisor.
Okay.
And Dr. Olutuae is my first
Supervisor. Okay. Okay. All right. Yes.
My name is Rita Owen. I'm in the Faculty of Business and Marketing.
Okay.
I just started my second year too.
Yes. Okay.
Dr. Olutuae Olutuae.
Okay. Okay. Beju is here. Okay. Okay. Good. 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 So it's nice that you are here, and we felt that out of our busy schedule, we felt this would be an intervention. So it's our hope it would be an intervention that would help make the journey easy. Make the journey easy, because the PhD journey is very interesting. It's quite a very interesting journey. Are we good to go now?
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I knew I was going to do a PhD program, so we had a program at a particular university. Okay, I must be here. Okay. We had a program at a particular university, and I was there, and I had these people, and I was asking them, how is the PhD program going to be? And they told me, PhD, it's not easy. We don't know if we're going to survive it. So I said, I'm not going to survive this thing. How is it going to be? How is it going to be? But you see, in life, nothing is easy. Even life itself, even to live itself, is for you to find a way out. There's always a way out. So one of the things we are trying to do with this particular session is try to perhaps share with you some of the ways we have found and see how that might be of help to you. We can only show you what we think has helped us. It's still left for you to do the work. And one of the key challenges of the PhD process is that nobody can do the work for you. You have to do it yourself. Because the PhD at the end of the day is not the PhD at the end of the day is not the sheet of paper they hand over to you as your certificate. It's the process you go through. So it's a process you go through. So we'll just go through now with technical issues and everything. Our time has shrunk to so that will be a rapid fire session we're going to be having together in the short time that we do have. So we're thinking about finding the gap. The first question is there any gap at all?
Yes.
You think so? Why must we find a gap?
But the missing link, something that is missing.
Nothing is missing. In your own point of view, you think something is missing. What if people think nothing is missing?
I don't think it's possible to say nothing is missing.
Okay.
Something could miss through
Okay.
or through omission. Nothing is missing. That means there will be no PhD because this is what we are trying to do to find a gap.
Okay.
There's gap everywhere.
Okay.
Even if you are studying, it might be no gap. Like let me make some serious. There are a problem that have been resolved in global north, which is still a problem in global south. So definitely there will always be a gap. It might not be where you are studying, or it might be where you are studying. So all over the places there is always going to
Okay.
be a gap. Yes.
Okay, I hear you.
I also have something to say.
Mm.
For me, when we say research, it's like searching again for something to make it balance,
Mm.
to make it complete.
Mm.
So if you say there is no gap, I feel there will be no need
Mm.
to carry out any other study.
Okay, that's a good one. I use as a means of our icebreaker. All right, good.
Can I have a breath?
Come again?
Yeah.
Yep.
So can I have a breath as well?
Yep, yep.
There is gap everywhere because we are all different.
Mm.
We see from different perspectives, we
Mm.
see from different lenses.
Mm.
Life is inexhaustive.
Mm.
So where somebody has stopped and, just like when you draw something, maybe like a 6,
Mm.
and another person comes from another, say, oh, this is like 9.
Mm.
So that's why there will always be a gap.
So because of different perspective,
Yeah.
it's a, all right. Okay, let's quickly look at that. Now, so we hope, it's very interesting. This aspect of this name, Research Incubator, is what I've been running these sessions since around 2000 and 20, that should be 2016 or 2015, in trying to get interested for support to PhD students. So we are hoping that today we'll be able to find a gap, like we said, and we'll be able to get direction for our PhD. Now, who am I? Quickly. Well, I am Olutuae Ajide, a global transformational leader, a CEO, and also with some of the things I do. And in all of this, is part of the organization I run and the things I run in the UK that awarded me the opportunity of being invited by His Majesty's King Charles for his coronation in Scotland because of making impact, trying to see, okay, how can we make the research with, or whatever we are doing, be of impact even in the community. And so it goes back to what we did yesterday about the fact that whatever you are doing in the research, it should not just end in the university. There must be, and that's why we took you yesterday to the townhouse to meet the Lord Mayor, the first citizen of Leicester, to see that whatever research you are doing, it must find a way of contributing to the society. It shouldn't just end like that. So it must interface with the society. And like I mentioned to you, the aspect of running this support to PhD students lasted since when I started my PhD in 2011, about the fact that for me, I found it was a steep learning curve, because like I told you what they told me before I came in. So I knew I have a serious battle. So I started this research support, helping people to discover and to know how to overcome those challenges. So I started it, organize events, bring people together, talk about the PhD process, how did you survive? And when I was finishing my PhD program, it became a challenge to say, okay, how do I continue this? So I decided that now recording the sessions and trying to, and on the day of my graduation, you see there, trying to demystify, I was keeping record of everything, and looking at, and on my channel, olutuae.com, and at YouTube, you'll find 54 videos of various aspects of the PhD program, of how the challenges, the various things that pertain. So here we are talking about brainstorming in the PhD program. See, that was a young man then, isn't it? Handling supervisor-student relationship, because things might not go out the way you think they should go. And then also the aspect of the importance of conference attendance during your PhD, conference attendance and publishing during your PhD. That's very important. And yeah, the PhD journey, of course, tackling the challenge of overwhelm. When you think that, who sent you this job? Why are you putting yourself in this kind of a situation? How do you tackle the overwhelm, the challenges that happen during the PhD program? So those are just some of the things, so you'll be able to see that creating the literature review, the research questions, the arguments that are responsible in the PhD program. So, first things, we're going to look at some of the first things. These are things I think somebody else might argue contrary. I think you must know. If you don't know them, then there's a problem. There's a problem. So the first thing is you are not a consultant. The PhD program, as it is nothing, does not make you a consultant. And oftentimes when people argue, and I've been there before, you're not a consultant. You're not arguing the program or the problem from a consultant, because you can employ a consultant, give the person the money, and the person come and write a good report and give it to you, how to solve the problem. But you're not a consultant. So you need to get that, know that I'm not a consultant. So who am I? What am I supposed to do as a PhD person? Oh, it's a PhD, not consultancy. So what is a PhD? What is a PhD? And I think what I will do, I will not give the answer. I'll try and show a video to try and see how to get that. And also, what is a thesis? You are asked to produce a thesis, a body of work, 80,000 words, 90,000 words, 100,000 words. At the end of the day, what is a thesis? What is that? What is a thesis statement? In other words, that thesis you are having, what is a thesis statement? Then, what is an argument? The PhD or that thesis is actually an argument you are having. If you've been involved in debates on camp or when you were younger, so the thesis actually is a body of argument in which you are arguing with yourself about a particular situation and trying to uncover that. And also, you go back to say, how do you recognize an argument? How do you know what's the conclusion, the reasons for the conclusion, and the premise indicators? And how do you know how to peel? When I was teaching an undergraduate group earlier, I told them, do you know tangerine? Do you know how to peel tangerine? Can you peel tangerine? Are you sure? You remember how to remove the skin? So, anytime you think you see tangerine, you should know how to peel. You should know how to peel. Now, before quickly I go back to I felt it to be of benefit, instead of me answering that question, so the first thing first. we have an audio? I think. What's up with okay, yeah.
You know, a TC work on and to know what are Dr. Olutuae Ajide here. Hi, here, Dr. Olutuae Ajide here. At this particular talk, I want to focus on what is it that you will be assessed with during the PhD program. You are expected to produce a thesis, a thesis or a book that will be used to assess if you qualify to earn the PhD, to earn the doctorate. So I believe also that an understanding or a lack of understanding of what a thesis is quite often makes the PhD student to get unstuck, get you stuck. You are not able to progress. You are not able to push on even in the program. So quickly, I would like to speak on a thesis, because I believe if you do understand what a thesis is, it will quickly jumpstart you and push you on the right track to know what actually you're doing. Quite a lot of persons, unlike myself, when we got into the PhD program initially, we don't understand what a thesis is. And the lack of understanding of what a thesis is makes us to just be running from pillar to post. So what is a thesis? A thesis is a statement, a statement you are putting forward as a premise, to be maintained or to be proved. A statement that you are putting forward based on what you have written as a premise to be maintained or to be proved. In other words, it's more of understanding that your thesis is an argument. Your thesis is an argument. And arguments are based on premises, are based on assumptions. So you must understand what assumptions are you making and what premises are you making in your thesis or in your aspect of your research that will lead to the conclusion you are making. Say for example, if you are researching in the aspect of sustainability, and say maybe you're looking at sustainability in the area of, say, the business schools, sustainability embedment in business schools, you need to understand what are the premises, what are the assumptions you are making, and what are the premises you are.
So, I asked the question, what's a PhD? Again, there's a video there. Because of our time, you can go and listen to it. It's a doctor of philosophy. So it means, in philosophy, you have arguments. In philosophy, you have premises. In philosophy, you have logic. And so your understanding of being able to argue your own point of view is what will earn you the PhD at the end of the day. So as I'm speaking, look at what you have written. Look at where you are. Have you actually argued anything in all the things you have written? Is there any argument in all the things that you have put out? I asked a question, what's the thesis? The thesis is an argument to say, this is my point of view, and this is why I believe this is logical. And to be able to fulfill and put out a good argument, you must understand what assumption you are working on. I think it's in economics. You call it what? Ceteris what? Paribus. All things being equal. That is the assumption you are making. So in your own thesis also, what assumption are you making? You must know those assumptions and be able to answer those questions. So quickly, before I hand over to Doctor, I mentioned the aspect of thesis. And you can be able to find good enough. This many years ago, this was very good and it was helpful. The University of Manchester website has a phrase bank in which they have quite a lot of, materials that are supposed to help. But I'm looking for. So even if this is what we. So if you say, for example, thesis statements, what's a thesis? And a statement that is needed in an essay or dissertation. There are multiple types of thesis statements, but generally we can divide them into expository or argumentative. An expository statement is a statement of fact, while an argumentative statement is a statement of opinion. Below are examples. So, your thesis statement, which is the first thing you put in your introduction, should be an argument. Somebody should be able to disagree with you. So say, for example, mandatory school uniforms should be implemented in educational institutions as they promote a sense of equality, reduce distractions, and foster a focused and professional learning environment. A clear view. This is what? School uniforms are what? Mandatory. Not maybe, should they not? So the question is, you look at your research correctly. What is your argument? Do you have a thesis statement from which every other thing you are writing is pointing to that argument, is pointing to that argument, is pointing to that argument? So, nature versus nurture. This essay will explore how both genetic, inheritance, and environmental factors equally contribute to shaping human behavior and personality. This is a compare and contrast situation. Now what you are saying, what? Genetics influence human behavior. Somebody can disagree with you. So if you have a thesis statement that is not disagreeable, you have not done anything. You have not started, because people cannot disagree with what you are saying. So I just leave it there. The American dream, a symbol of opportunity and success, is increasingly elusive in today's social economic landscape, revealing deeper inequalities in society. That's a persuasive thesis statement. So, like I told you, it's not to it's just to give you tips. You now go back and begin to look at. So, what is your thesis statement? You're not a consultant. Your PhD, you're going to be a doctor of philosophy. What are you philosophizing in your thesis? So if you don't understand what that is a problem. What's your thesis? What's your thesis statement? What's an argument? What are you arguing about? Now, one of the key things that helped when you hear anything about your writing, which was very critical, do you know what a sentence is? Do you know what a paragraph is? If you don't know what a sentence is, and you don't know what a paragraph is, then you will not be able to know how to peel. Because your thesis, 80,000 words, 90,000 words, 100,000 words, is a cumulation of what? Paragraphs. And those paragraphs must be sequentially linking into one another, in which every paragraph that you are having should start with a topic sentence. Point of view. What is your point of view? We don't have, maybe in another workshop, I want to show you how do you create a framework from a topic. How do you create a framework that will lead to argument that will flow until the conclusion. And each of the paragraph will be carrying a message that will be leading up to the first one. And then you'll be able to have P is for point of view, E is the evidence, that you are giving. You are giving an evidence. So when you put a point of view, like we had earlier, from mandatory school uniform should be implemented in educational institutions as they promote a sense of equality, reduce distractions, and foster a focused and professional learning environment. So when you have that, for example, as your arguments, as what you want to argue about, so that's your first line. Then what do? You peel. You can explain. E is explanation. The other E is evidence. The other E is evaluate. You evaluate that statement? So you have an explanation about it. Why is school uniform important? So if this is the first line, topic sentence, second line, an explanation of what you've just put here as point of view, the third line, an evidence. So what's an evidence? So you can go to, that's why you bring in statistics. For example. Or you now come to what? Give an evaluation. What's your judgment? You know, we just accept everything. What's judgment? So the fact that it's written in journal article does not mean you should accept it. The fact that it is published does not mean you should accept it. So what's the evaluation? You evaluate, that's the third E, and then you link that paragraph to the next paragraph. Yes?
In that kind of situation, can we use like a case study as a judgment instead of statistical analysis? If we want to justify the reason why we should follow that, can we use like a case study? Does it really work in that kind of?
The question is, who wrote the case and what is the case all about? And that's where the sort of evaluation comes into place. Because, like we know, a lot of things have been written, a case study has been written because somebody was paid to write the case study. So the person would have written the case study to favor a particular point of view. So it's still challengeable. But if it's a data, that you would have been able to find plausible ways of ensuring that it is not skewed, even though we know that even data can still be skewed, isn't it? You can still build bias into it, but you are looking for a minimum aspect of error from whatever you are doing. I think on that note, I will just invite, we'll stop there and get Dr. Samuel to come over and take us to the next. Yeah, take us to the next aspect. Okay, you have a question.
Were you done or you were trying to rush?
No, we are both presenting.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we are swapping. So you think as if we are finished?
No, I wanted to. There's no need to really rush
We also have lectures, but we need to we'll switch. So he will come up. Just note all your questions down.
So I was just going to show you what I'm doing.
What you're doing? Okay.
Okay.
Note all your questions down. Then we'll be able to take that at the.
Okay. So I put this on as intermission.
Okay.
So once I go up there, so this can go up, and then this one, as I'm sliding, also sliding.
Okay.
So you're following along. Then you can be moving this between this and this.
Okay.
No, sorry, between this and this one. For instance, now I can say this is life, and then this one I can just use merge, and then take it back. Then yeah, take it back, that kind of thing. And then you can also occasionally do that here. Yeah, so that is between this and this now. So between this and this, but the most important one is this one and this. These two here. Then you remember to follow it. Okay. Alright, can I have the is there? Alright, okay. Yeah. Okay. So what we plan to do today is, it takes an aspect, I come in, then after that he jumps in again, and that way we are able to synchronize our thoughts. Then in the end you realize that there are some aspects I would have covered that he didn't cover, and some aspects he covered that I have not covered, and that way you're able to have a full package. So it's a blend of experience from different perspectives, but it's the same thing. Do you understand? All right. So all of what I'm going to be integrating with what Dr. Olutuae has started with also revolves around finding a research gap. Okay, and then we are looking at that perspective of AI. Okay, you can't run away from it. Yes, you cannot. It's not possible. Yeah, AI became more pronounced just in recent years, right? Yeah. So I remember when I was doing my PhD. I finished my PhD in 2017. Yes, I finished actually 2016. Then I graduated 2017. There wasn't AI. We didn't we didn't hear anything about AI and all of that. But there were some tools available that we could use and all of those things and all of that. And then what was available, we were able to utilize them. Why am I saying this? Now AI is available. You should also be able to utilize them. Know how to use them, and use them ethically, which is the most important part. All right. So, there's a lot I can say about myself. Let's forget about all the details. I've got over 20 years of teaching experience across different universities in South Africa, Nigeria, and UK. I've mentored and supervised PhDs and masters across those 3 countries. That's my interest: entrepreneurship, small business, innovation, and all that. 3 things, a lot of things, but we've been able to fit them into 3 caps, okay? Yeah. Again, what exactly is that research gap we've been talking about? And then you took note of something about thesis statement that Dr. Olutuae mentioned. Okay. There's a lot we are going to cover on how to find that gap, because we are talking about thesis statement. So the question is, how can I just wake up and make a claim and I will not be asked, or that will not be punctured? So you have written something down and you thought, yeah, I've written, this is a very good introduction, this is a very good solid statement of problem statement, and then your supervisor picked them and punctured it with all the possible pins and red pens, and like, I don't know where to start from again. I thought I was doing something good. Am I speaking about your experience? Yeah. All right. So how do you find that kind of gap that will be watertight or airtight, like I would usually say it? Then that connection between your gap, thesis statement, all of that, and your frameworks, research frameworks, not just 1, not 2, 3. Okay. So we'll deal with that as we get along in the presentation. So first thing, what research gap is. So we're talking about thesis statement. How do you peel? How do you get down to that point? So it's coming down to what we refer to as research gap. Okay? So that clear and identifiable area where existing knowledge is insufficient. So maybe you take note of keywords. We have some knowledge there, but it is not sufficient. And that is what you want to prove. So don't make a claim by saying, there is no knowledge in this area. Then you'll be surprised. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. You just, So I've not started. Yes, actually you have not started. Maybe you have started, but you are not yet there. Okay. Knowledge is insufficient. 2, it is inconsistent. Sometimes you find people have done a lot of empirical research, and there are different conclusions, different findings, and then you try to put everything together. So one thing you do is, you are digging for gold, right? Yeah. So you dig 1 meters below, 2 meters below, 3 meters below, and you keep digging. And they're like, there is nothing here. You give up. But the gold is there. You only just need to dig a little more, then a little more, then a little more. And then there you are. You have the gold. So you've got to dig and dig and dig. So when you have a topic and you have a search term around that topic and you put it into your Google Scholar, Web of Science, Scopus, all of those stuff, and then it turns out the results. You say, there's a lot that has been written in this area. No, I forgot about that idea. I pick another idea. And then you keep searching. You say, a lot has been written about this area. I don't know what else to write. You see, you are like that guy who dug 6-7 meters and stopped. You've got to dig further in the same area. Don't change. Don't change your site. Don't change location. Don't change your spot. Just keep. As long as that is your interest. So you just keep digging. Another meter more, another meter more, another meter more, you will definitely get. So by the time you dig into that area, you realize that a lot has been written. You say, okay, by the way, what are people even saying? Okay, what has been done? Oh, okay, what has been their findings? You may, in the process of that, find that something is inconsistent. You are not yet there, but you're almost getting there. Why is it inconsistent? And so does it matter if we have inconsistent findings? Does it matter to practice? Does it matter to policy? Does it matter, especially in this time and age, in the light of emergency situations? So you see, those are the questions. You see, that is why Dr. Olutuae says you don't just say, this is it, this is it. You've got to evaluate. This is the evidence, okay? We know that is this is the explanation, this is the evidence, okay? But where is your own voice? Where is your own evaluation? So that is why you begin to dig and say, oh yes, a lot has been done in this area. Here are the conclusions. These are the findings. But as I dug further, so you didn't stop at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meters. You went further. I spotted this inconsistency. Okay, good. But you are not yet there. Why is it so? So you are finding explanation for that. Okay, does it even really matter? Oh, I think it matters, especially in the light of this, and that. And that is getting you to that point of finding a gap. Does it make sense? All right. Sometimes it could be something that is limited in scope. So, you don't need to look for all the three. Just look for one. You know why? So my supervisor said, look, don't break your head. Your PhD is like a grain of sand in a huge heap. Does it make sense? Yes. So you just want to prove that that one grain is an addition to the heap. That's all. So don't break your head and say you want to do something. Look for just one of these. Even when you find so many inconsistencies, don't bother yourself. Just focus on one of them. Does it make sense? Yes, that is why the cheapest degree is PhD. It's cheaper than first degree. Because first degree you have to go wide. But this one you go narrow. Such that when you finish, the only thing you know is that thing. And they talk and say, that is not my area. That is not my area. That is not my area. You say, so the people that are very, very not so very knowledgeable are professors and doctors because they have just narrowed down to something very narrow, you know. And that is why they are always humble. They always want to learn. Tell me, I want to know about your field. Okay, tell me more about your area. Okay, tell me more, tell me more. Which is why you see them, they are humble and they always want to learn. Because PhD has made them to narrow down. So don't focus on too many things. Just go down to something very specific. Makes sense? Yes. All right. So something that is, so when if you find something insufficient, inconsistency or limitation in scope, in context, or in methodology, and you are able to justify that this matters. Because sometimes it may not matter. Okay, it didn't matter 10 years ago. Now it matters, and this is why. Does it make sense? All right. So, that will be your research gap. The next thing is you should be able to connect your gap with justification for your study, and also connect that with contribution of your study. Yeah. So your gap should not be isolated from the justification or rationale for your study, and should not be isolated from your contribution of the research. And you know one question you can never avoid in any doctoral exam. And so, what is your contribution? In fact, that may be the first question before we begin to go back. So how did you arrive at that point? If the examiner wants to get you and get you over the finishing line quickly, so tell me your contribution. You've done PhD for 5 years, 4 years. Tell me, what have you contributed? This is my contribution. Oh, interesting. Oh, it doesn't make sense to me. Finish. Oh, okay. That sounds interesting. Tell me more about it. How did you arrive at that? What inspired that? So how did you go about it? What is your strategy, your research strategy, and all of that? You are not explaining. Now you are going back to the beginning to the end. Yes. So that will be a very good approach to helping you to get ready for your exam, in case the examiner comes from that angle. Which is why I'm pointing this out. There must be connection between your gap, justification, and link. Because your gap helps you to formulate your questions, and then and that underpins the rationale for your study, which is your justification, and clarifies exactly where your research comes in terms of contribution. Okay? Right. Let's come to this. So there's a lot we're going to do here. So I'll do a part and stop, and Dr. Olutuae will come back, jump in, fixing some missing parts, do some practical session, and then we'll move on, okay? And then we can finish on time. Finding research gap. The first step here is to determine what we currently know. What we currently know. Now, don't tell me that we don't know this because you don't know it. That's a mistake. And it's a painful mistake. Painful mistake in the sense that by the time you make that mistake and you thought, yes! And your supervisor said, no! It brings frustration. So you don't want to do that. So that you don't know does not mean others don't know. Okay? And that thing does not exist in one point does not mean it does not exist in another point. There are some technologies that don't exist in Africa or perhaps in Asia, but they already exist in another part of the world. Simple. So you are not trying to say, it does not exist here, therefore I want to... No. You are reinventing the wheel. The solution already exists somewhere. All we need to do is to find a way to transfer it, and make it happen there. Simple as that. So the question is, getting that to Africa, will it warrant research? Maybe not. So you see why you cannot just conclude by saying it does not exist, therefore you have a gap. No, not that way. So how do you establish that knowledge? You do what we call mapping. Map and synthesize existing knowledge. Very simple, don't worry. I'll break it down for you. So that you don't say, what is that, this thing called mapping? Is it map of Africa or what? All right. So first, you have an area you're interested in, right? This is my research interest. I'm interested in sustainability, for instance. But what aspect of sustainability? Okay, maybe this. Environmental sustainability. Maybe even organizational sustainability, okay, or business sustainability, right? Whatever aspect of sustainability. And then you are asking yourself, what do we know about that area? Now, that is similar to trying to jump into the the largest ocean is the Pacific Ocean. You want to jump right into the Pacific Ocean and swim across. That could be very dangerous without a plan. You get lost. Like MH, what is the flight that came from, that left Malaysia and vanished? MH3 something, I've forgotten the number. That is it. Finish. Because you didn't have a plan, you get lost in the ocean. So, what is the strategy? First is, I would say traditionally, okay, have your search times, your search items or search terms, put them into Google Scholar, all of those. Please don't do that anymore. You get lost more. There's a better strategy. Okay? I am interested in business sustainability. That's an example. Okay? Dr. Olutuae will illustrate that. But I will go to any of the AI tools and say, I want you to tell me how topics around AI tools are framed in the academic language, and give me something like 10 to 12 search items or search terms around business sustainability. So, by the time you keep rephrasing that prompt, you will come up with very succinct academic search terms that you can now take out of that AI tool, and you now begin your search. And what are you trying to get? You are trying to get not 100 articles, not 500 articles that you want them to appear in your reference list. No, you are perhaps looking for 10 or 5, and may I shock you? Maybe 1. If you pick up my PhD thesis, you find 1 article repeatedly cited again and again. That is the anchor article, the seminal paper. So you need to come down to that point. If you are lucky, your supervisor may give you 1. If he doesn't have 1 to offer you, then you have to search it. And this is the strategy for it. Right? So get that 1 item, 1 particular paper, and then you can take that into another tool. I put there Mendeley. Mendeley, the current version of Mendeley also has AI integration, which requires some payment. Mendeley is free, but there is an aspect of it that has an AI feature now, and then you put it there and say, Mendeley helps you to do your citation and all of that referencing, right? It also helps you to keep your thought and your annotations, right? And then it helps you, in fact, you pick those anecdotes and then use them to write. Very easy, right? Okay. So it's not that Mendeley is doing the job for you. You are doing the job yourself, but it's making the doing of the job easier. All right. Now, one thing that Mendeley now asks is, you just click, I want you to give me the complete overview of this paper, apart from the abstract. It will give you something very succinct. And then you can interrogate, how about this? How about that? Whatever question, prompt is coming to your mind, you keep asking. On that 1 paper, and you are using Mendeley, and it's giving you, and it's referring you to the relevant paragraphs and sentences and sections of the paper to read and see what it's telling you. So that by the time you spend about, say, 30 minutes to 1 hour on that paper, even if it is 20 pages, you can go out and say everything about that paper as if you are the author. Now, it gives you a good footing to start establishing what we currently know. Then from there, you can snowball. Okay, what other key references were cited in that paper? What other relevant authors or works or research papers are connected to that paper? You can even also go back to your AI tools and begin to do some tracking. Tell me, what are the papers that are now more relevant to this? Have I missed a very critical paper, a seminal paper that I also need to read? Or is there a new paper that has come up between last month and this month, last year and this year, that I need to, You keep all of that tracking. That way you are doing the mapping. And the practical mapping will be done when Dr. Olutuae comes. All right? Does it make sense? When you are doing your mapping, look for patterns. Look for inconsistency. Look for missing links. Maybe you also want to look for some weaknesses or bias in terms of the methodological approaches used. Huh? Do you also want to look for perhaps assumptions that have been made but not tested? Aha. There you go. You're almost getting there now, right? So anything around these things that you see could help you. You know, they will just serve as pointer to where you should be getting, okay? All right. Then the next thing is to critically synthesize the literature you have been able to map, okay? That is where your thought comes. That is where you begin to question and interrogate. That is where you need to put on your critical thinking and cap. This is where we need to have your voice blending with literature. This is where evaluation comes in, all right? So you want to query some of the things you have identified as you are doing your mapping. Maybe from the perspective of context or methodology, or from the perspective of theory or theoretical assumptions, where some things have been assumptions made but not tested, or theories have just been, maybe some generalizations that have been made and you are trying to challenge them, okay? Or it could also be some kind of interventions that have been applied and you say, no, we think we have a better intervention or better way of doing the intervention in the light of, and then you are considering things like empirical findings that could be consistent, inconsistent. That's where you generally will find some inconsistency. If you are looking for inconsistency, then you are focusing on empirical findings, okay? So that you don't try to focus on theory and focus on this and focus on that. So focus on one of these or one or two of these combined, okay? But let me quickly sound a note of warning. Contextual gap is the weakest link, except you are dealing with contextual variables. There are some variables, which is why I say please note, number one, the nature of the variables there. Can you see? If you are dealing with economic variables or you are dealing with behavioral variables. So look at it. More money, more income affects the way I spend, the way I save, or the way I invest, right? Those are economic variables, right? Do you think that will significantly change in pattern as you move from context to context? Maybe not. Okay. The way I behave when I'm in a social gathering, is it the same way I behave when I'm at home? The way I behave when I'm in an official engagement, is it the same way when I'm in a social circle? Is it the same? The behavior is not the same. So you are saying that context is affecting the way I behave, right? So you see, you need to look at the nature of the variables or the construct you are dealing with. Why, especially when you are looking at contextual gap. Because some variables or constructs may not be quite different as you move from context to context. So if you come from that perspective, it will just be from this dead on arrival, that kind of stuff, right? So take note of that. So sometimes you also want to bring in some emerging issues into what is happening. Okay, everything has been fine and good, but with these emerging issues, we have a lot of questions to ask. We have a lot of questions begging for answers. You know, that kind of stuff. So that helps you. In fact, we cannot continue to view this concept as the same in the light of, reconceptualization possibilities, right? Potentials. So you look at all of those things, and that helps you in your critique of extant literature. So I'm going to take a pause here, and then Dr. Olutuae will jump back to the... I hope I'm not rushing you. Okay. All well and good? All right, thank you.
All right. So how's it going so far?
Yeah, very well.
You have a question?
Yeah, it's not a question, it's just an observation.
Okay.
It's very insightful.
Mm.
For me, I feel programs like this or teachings like this should be made at the very beginning. So that we don't struggle around circles before you try to like find your pathway.
Well,
Because yeah, for me, I think I found it difficult as in a bit late.
mm,
In that maybe reading in between lines to like getting it. But this kind of thing would have saved a whole lot of.
well, interestingly enough, like they say, is that you have not finished. As far as you have not done your Bible,
You can always go back and reiterate things. Yeah.
you can still
Ready, just like that kind of scenario where the examiner says, welcome, show me the contribution of your brother. Okay, how did you get there? Yeah, so things like this now can help you get yourself ready.
earlier, and Dr. Samuel has alluded, when I say you're not a consultant, you see, you're looking for theory. He gave you an example, practical example of his own thesis. There's a particular, now when he used the word, you need to pay attention. When he says seminal work, it means that research, not just any article. It means that particular body of work set the tone for the whole industry, for the whole field.
You will see the citation. It will, apart from the citation.
So, in your own research, which paper, which seminar work, groundbreaking work, and it does not necessarily have to be done in 2025. It might even be done in 1930 or 1965. And that is the work you want to add knowledge. That is the work you want to make better, or you want to apply for us in this time. So, when you're not a consultant, if you recall your transition probation exam, they were asking, what are the key literatures? So you say you've been doing this research. Your research is in startup survival in emerging economy. So what particular paper creates the framework for startup survival in emerging economy that you have been focusing on? Give me one name. One author. Mention one author. Mention one author. 2020 is not going to make it because it's a new one. When we say seminal, it's a groundbreaking research.
It's Eric Plus 2025.
It's not something that is as recent as 2 years,
It's not something recent.
4 years, 5 years. Yeah, it can be up to 10 years or more.
A research that is groundbreaking, particularly to that's what we're talking about. So when they were asking you, okay, which articles, and you're not able to mention any, at any point in which you're not able to talk about a particular work you are basing your work on, you are a consultant. You are a consultant at that point. It means you are not talking as an academic. This is an academic work. You should be talking to, you should wake and sleep. Oh, this particular paper, I'm connected to it. That paper, you must just be thinking of papers coming out of you. Because that is, even in your Viva, that is also what will be expected. That I'm extending the work of, for example, if you go to my own thesis, you will see Grunig et al. Grunig is the main work when it comes to the issue of engagement. So you must have a particular work that is baseline. So let me quickly back to what we're doing. So quickly, how do we be able to put all that together? So, okay, yeah, full slide, yeah. So how do we put all that together? So you mentioned earlier finding some articles. How do you find those things? What are you seeing there that is similar to you? And the title. What did we ask you to go and do? So you conduct a systematic literature review. It says lightweight. It's because it's not deep. You are just trying to, which is what you are going to, is giving you making it easy using AI to help you to do that search. You are looking for patterns. And as you are doing that, you are looking for what were the research questions. So, in entrepreneurship resilience or startup resilience, is that what you're talking about? What was the research paper? What was the research question of that particular paper in women politics? And small business, it was the other lady that was women politics. In small business, what was the research question? What was the method they used? What was the data? What was the, like I just told you, context is not enough. Oftentimes we always agree. It's not been done in the global, it's been done in global north. We want to do it in global south. Why must it be? Why must we do it in global south? We don't need to do it in global south.
We just need to transfer that knowledge.
Why must we do it in global south?
Yes, and that transfer does not require you to do it.
Yeah, we don't need to do a
You
PhD.
have to wait for 4 years for us to transfer. We don't
Yeah.
transfer in 1 week.
Yeah. You don't need to do a PhD to do the transfer of the knowledge. And that's how they can puncture your, so if what you have been basing your work on is, in the global north is there. Now we want to do it in global south. Say, who cares? Is there even infrastructure to even implement it in the global south?
So it's not one of the reasons why we should search.
It is, if you even bring it, do they accept it? So again, what are the key findings? Limitations. So we're looking for patterns here, quickly. So in trying to all these papers that you're looking at, based on the strategy has given you, you are doing all that. You're trying to look at what were the repetitions. What were the repetitions? Oh, they've done qualitative. So why are they doing qualitative? They've done quantitative. Why are they all doing quantitative? Why? Or are they begging the question? Or what should we do about it? So are the same methods used repeatedly? Are the same populations or data sets studied? Are conclusions becoming predictable? Can we predict the outcome? So example, everyone is studying what? Entrepreneurship. Is it resilience again you talk about? What? Entrepreneurship survival. Everybody is studying entrepreneurship survival using qualitative method in the context of developing economy. Why? Why are they using that in developing economy? And this is not yet even a gap yet, but it's giving you an insight into what new thing. Because don't forget the word. We've not mentioned the word since we started today. Novel. What's novel? What's new about your work? What is new that's not been done before about the work you are doing? So the fact that they are doing entrepreneurship, survival, using qualitative method in Global South, is that really? So it's just giving you a guide into, just stop the alarm for me, please. Sorry, it's 12 o'clock. Thank you. So that's just a clue there. So you are extracting these things you've seen as the most underused gold mine, and you are looking at the now. Some people call it FREEN, which is future research that we should explore in any article you look at. In any journal article you are looking at, they give you further research you should look at. They tell you the study is limited to this. They tell you we did not consider this. So in any article you're looking at, don't forget you have a spreadsheet. You put all these are 50 or 20 articles. They all use qualitative. What kind of qualitative? What is the data set they're looking at? And that's what I'm going to tell you about literature table matrix. Literature matrix. You have a literature matrix of various authors, of what is the theme, what is the title, what is the year, what is the methodology they use, what is the number of people they use, so that you're looking at your literature review matrix, it tells you the landscape of, and you can see, you have to begin to look for what is the difference, the meeting point here. So by the time you look at all this, you are coming to a cluster of unresolved issues. Now, if I ask you in entrepreneurship that you're looking at of startups, what are the unresolved issues?
I think in my area is the percentage.
Of what?
There's like inconsistency of there is inconsistency in the area of statistical percentage of
So the question is that you want to get your PhD on statistics, inconsequential statistics, not enough.
No. I mean one of the inconsistency of knowledge.
Okay. Sir.
Let me help you. You see, there has been this search. There was a time this search actually started. That, we need entrepreneurship education. That is the way to go. That will resolve unemployment. It will reduce graduate unemployment. It will deal with graduate unemployability challenges. Deal with that. All of this. This is how we can do entrepreneurship education. But when you do this, the government needs to invest, investment to invest. All of that you find there in literature. Tons of literature. Okay. Nigerian government decided that like formulating policy where entrepreneurship education complements the into investing
All the models.
colleges, wherever, high institutions generally, and that it does not matter your discipline. And the hope was that by this time, we will have people who are ready to go out and look for
And start business.
Start the business instead of looking for it. And then I was looking at the statistics. Do the statistics speak to the assumption, to the theory? You see, you're already finding a gap almost automatically. And then I'm asking, what actually are the unresolved issues? Can we say that the way entrepreneurship education is designed in terms of components, did they really impact on these that are essential for graduate entrepreneurship? So that becomes an unresolved issue that we need to talk about. So that's what I'm saying.
A study.
I don't know if you understand that simple. Yes. Yeah, but that took years to get to that point. I can tell you it took about 2 years to get to that.
Yeah.
Maybe more than.
Leonard.
I have a question. If you mentioned what is that and what is that, you need us to understand that methodology could call for a previous studies in challenge. If I mention that as the reason why I am doing my own study in quantitative instead of quantitative, which has been done before, does that warrant the study to be carried out? Or?
Don't put it that way. If you put it that way, you are going to get napped immediately.
That's why I really want to understand
So,
that.
you are yet to, you need to go 1 meter more, and maybe another meter more, and then another meter more.
Okay, so that I'll be able to
You are still on your way.
Okay.
So you will say, oh, okay, you noticed that 95% of studies done in the last 10 years in this field, they have employed this array this. And the methodology has limited us from knowing that. So that is the unresolved issue. So what is that this that we need to know?
And
Methodology
that
has-
this you want to know, again, must be underpinned by authors.
Exactly.
That you found it is not qualified enough.
Yeah.
What are others authors agreeing that that thing you have found,
Yeah.
they are saying of a
They are
truth.
suggesting, we have this limitation.
We have been having this problem, and now you are saying, oh, you are saying, okay, this person said it, that person said it, that person said it, that person said it, and so nobody has taken it upon themselves to do that work.
Where critical mapping required.
So based on that,
So you will not say, sorry, sir, you
Yeah.
will not say, okay, because people are using qualitative, therefore I will use quantitative.
it doesn't work like that. And again, how are
That's a lazy academic approach.
the way we started, based on your thesis statement, does your thesis statement agree for you to use the methodology you have chosen to use?
That's the pillar.
So if anything you are doing, you are thinking of your thesis statement. Everything you are looking at your thesis statement. Because interestingly enough, your thesis statement will give you a guide of how you're going to get the data. Who are you going to come up with? The final research topic you're going to be working with, your thesis statement is giving you that pointer. So when we talk about future research to be explored, it could be, some call it FRIN, future research that you need to do. Further research is needed, FRIN, FRIN, further research is needed, or research opportunities or further research direction that this should go is very important. Now, it's very, when you were speaking, when Dr. Sam was speaking earlier, he mentioned using these keywords. Like, good enough, when we did this thing, there was no AI. So you use what we call Boolean tools. Do you know how to use Boolean tools in which you search title, keywords of, we're going to look at a practical aspect later. This plus this and this, or this minus this and that. You are looking for particular specific wordings of words that will help you even in your search. So, interesting. For you, we have classes. He has a class at 1. I have a class at 2, and we need to unpack this place. So, am I supposed to be on?
We have any further questions?
Of course, yes. So I think we need to. This is where I'm supposed to stop. Then you come and continue.
But it's something, I don't think it's going to be something different.
Yeah, depending on your need.
It's
Yeah,
needs-
maybe you have need for methodology issues and all that. Yeah,
Or preparing for your Bible.
yeah.
That's another thing altogether.
I mean, year 2, is it not too early for me to be talking about Bible?
No, everything is towards that. So,
I think
Yeah.
methodology will be better.
yeah.
So if UK government call for research in the area of either SME or leadership, will it be a gap?
Yeah, so before the call for that, a team of academics would have done the groundwork and they identify where the gap exactly is. So in the call for that, maybe paper submission or research to be done or something, you'll see that somewhere and it will be easy for you to pick it up.
And don't forget the fact that you are a PhD student now. So there are professors who have been working for the past 30 years.
Yeah,
They've worked in that field.
yeah,
So the UK government, before they put anything out, they've already gotten these professors, like, well, let's bring the one they say at the time now. They're already working with the Montfort University and Leicester University before they do anything. So don't think that you are you are going to just find the something there. Other people are working already with that field.
Okay, so back to this. This guy looks so busy, right? So I tell you a bit of history behind this tool, this model I developed. So I developed this model from my experience doing PhD, and then out of the need to help mentor masters and PhD students back in Cape Town. So the first time I developed this was in 2016, and then I updated in 2019, and then I updated this year. And that's why you see AI elements. Yeah, so even me too, I'm developing. I'm growing. All right, so we know we've established what is already known. We've been able to engage in critical thinking to challenge what is known. In fact, in the old model, I say query what is known. Question it. Question everything possible. So you question this, okay, no. You question this, okay, no. You question it. You will get one that points you to where you should be going. Do you understand? So if it is going to be theoretical perspective, you are going fantastic. Empirical perspective, fantastic. Or maybe even conceptualization issues. Yeah. Yeah. You come up with new concepts, you know. And then whichever way, as you are challenging, it's like you are just probing. Oh, no way there, okay, that's fine. Okay, no way there, okay, that's fine. You don't change site, the same site, but keep digging. All right? Next thing is, what is it that we don't know? That exactly is the gap. So after all of this, you should be able to have an identified gap through synthesis and criticism. What is it that we don't know? So it could be an entirely new topic, or something that is very limited in terms of prior research. So it could also be a methodological gap. So far, so good. We know that if you take step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get up to this. Because our previous researchers have always used this methodology. But in recent literature, people are beginning to now raise questions about this methodology in terms of its potential limitation in letting us know more about this aspect. In terms of potential bias that could possibly skew, in terms of, you get it? And then at the end, you are able to say, okay, based on this, I am identifying this gap, and I'm already thinking that this particular gap actually, and you can prove it with evidence, that actually it limits how much we could possibly know in this area. For instance, this does not answer this question. So what if this change? What if? So you now begin to come up with all those what if. So what if in this scenario analysis, what happens? In this scenario analysis, what happens? This is where this gap is limited, and we will not be able to find out this. So I was discussing, I was mentoring a doctoral student in recent times here in the UK. And then that's in the field of psychology, right? So she was researching into conflict-induced trauma. Yeah. I don't know if you know something about trauma. Yeah. So different aspects of trauma now. But now you can see the way she has focused. I'm not interested in other kind of trauma that is caused by whatever else, okay? I'm interested in those who have experienced trauma because they found themselves in conflict zones. War has broken down, civil crisis, whatever it is. Something that emerged as a result of conflicts. So, what was it like? And how did they overcome it? And then she's saying, look, you know the problem? if you apply any of the existing models, we will have limited understanding of what people actually went through from that perspective and how they were able to overcome it over a period of time. So we are not going to use the single road approach. We are going to use the multi-road approach. And the supervisor say, come over, I need to supervise you. That was what ended a position. Straight away. So, we're working on this over a period. At a point, we had to be sharing library from distance. I've not seen her for a long time, for years now. But we're just sharing library very mentally. And then she does annotation, I do my annotation while we're reading together. So, okay, no, okay, do this. Okay, I think this is what you want to do. And then, by the time we did all the mapping and the criticism, we were able to identify exactly. And it was revolving around that. So, that's the practical example of this thing. And they were able to say, look, following the single road approach will not give us this sufficient knowledge, which means if we are trying to treat conflict-induced trauma like we treat any other trauma, we will not get optimal results. Does that make sense? So you can't treat conflict-induced trauma like you will treat somebody who went through postpartum birth, all those kind of stuff, right? You won't treat it, you won't get the same results. The therapy cannot be the same. If you base the therapy on the same model and you apply to the same different situation, you won't get the same results. And the reason is because we have always approached the treatment of conflict-induced trauma based on a single road approach. So let us uncover something deeper by employing multi-road approach. So it is not because we want to do multi-road approach. People have been doing single road. It is because, so you see the unresolved issue there. Do you understand? So that is the gap itself that emanates from empirical gap. Methodological issues. You could also be empirical gap where you have a lot of inconsistency. That's quite almost on the surface, right? Yes. But it could be deep and tricky anyway. Theoretical limitations as well. So theoretical limitations could arise where a lot of assumptions have been made. For instance, now where somebody have done a study and it was a grand theory study. Very good stuff. Yeah. You look at for systematic literature reviews that have been published. I say, oh yeah, that is it. So some of those studies that formulate propositions, but they did not test them. And those propositions are challenging existing knowledge. Then you can come in there and begin to say, this assumption, can it be true? I want to challenge it because of this, because of that, because of that. And then you also have a gap there. Okay. So that is how to establish what we do not know. I'm going to stop at this point and then we'll move on to the... So I'll ask Dr. Olutuae to please... Yeah.
So I've got another question on gap.
Okay. Okay.
It's a crucial thing now. I'm currently facing. I attended the webinars recently and I asked a question that is it possible to have more than one literature gap in a single study? Does it make sense?
Let Dr. Olutuae answer that. Then I will simply say you want to do 2 or more cases at a time. No, that is a very shortcut answer.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
Because your work is just a dot in the whole knowledge. You get a PhD in just entrepreneurship, startup, risk. That's just what you know. If you talk about employee funding, you might not even know more about it because that's not what's the area. You know, my one of my mentors, who is in the field of mathematics. We both have mentors that are in mathematics, myself and him. He was talking about how myopic your PhD is. If you say you have PhD in mathematics, they ask you which part of mathematics. Because there are various parts of mathematics. When you now go to say, okay, is this part of mathematics? They ask you again, which part of mathematics is that? So you are going to a division. You choose one. Just like when they ask you for which kind of egg do you want? Is it boiled egg? Is it scrambled egg? Is it omelette? Is it? So when you say omelette, they say, okay, do you want it warm? Or, you just keep going and going and going until it's just that. Now, one of the key things that you need to know, this really helped me. I told you earlier about when I was starting the PhD, I was thinking, would I really finish this? Because I felt I would not be able to finish it. So I stumbled on this. I was asking myself the question, how would I be examined on the day of my viva? And as I was stumbled, I came about nasty PhD viva questions. And I suggest, if you like, go and take time to read. Make this your Bible if you are a person of faith. Because he's asking you critical questions that you must be able to answer for you to be able to be successful. So I started with the end to come back to the beginning. And that was what I was focusing on. You see, a PhD candidate needs to anticipate the questions that are likely to be asked in the Bible. The horrible ordeal where you have to defend your thesis in person before they rip you to shreds. Actually, it's not nearly as bad as it sounds, provided that you enter it having prepared to your utmost. There are 3 reasons why PhD candidates have to have a Bible. It's that the examiner can see whether it is your own work. Is it your own work that you did? Or whether you understand what you did, or whether it is worth even a PhD. Maybe what you did does not worth a PhD, so cannot give you a PhD. So if you spend time to understand this aspect of understanding you are ready to become an independent researcher, are you already an independent researcher? Relationship to other people's work, how does your work relate with other people's research in that field? Novelty, what is new? What is publishable about your work? What have you achieved based on what, and what's the implication? What will it make a difference to? Would there be any difference? Demonstrate a hypothesis, or why did you do the way you did? Why did you do what you are doing? So I just think, it just came to me that I think that might be of help to someone. All right. So when it comes to the aspect, just to buttress again what has been mentioned earlier, the various gaps. So where is your gap that you are arguing based on your thesis statement? Is it empirical? Is it methodological? Is it theoretical or contextual? And you've been told when you talk about contextual, who cares? And what we were told, I don't know if you've been asked, so what? They've not done it in Global South, and so what? Who cares about that? So the PhD is for you to be able to make a case. Who cares? You need to make us care. Why are you doing it? So, how is there a contradiction? There's a disagreement based on the field. in the field of entrepreneurship, startups, and is it resilience or resilience? What contradiction are there? Are there a group of scholars that are saying something else, and a different group of scholars are saying something else? They cannot come to an agreement. So, if there are contradictions, and you want to resolve that contradiction, hope you're able to resolve it, because there are times in which you might not actually be able to resolve the contradictions, and just leave it the way it is, and you just pick your own side. You pick your battle, and just sit in there. Now, as I'm saying that now, it occurred to me, don't be an ostrich. In your PhD, don't be an ostrich. What does an ostrich do? It puts itself in one place and does not care about. They cannot find me. They cannot see me. He's out there. Don't be an ostrich. In his mind, he's doing everything. But now, what do I mean with that analogy? Is the fact that don't be so biased that all you are saying, all the paper you are looking for, are all the paper that support your own point of view. Then there's no critical analysis. So in your PhD, you must incorporate those who disagree with you. And that is what the PhD is all about, what it trains you. Your ability to accept those who disagree with you and still be friends with them, and not, the world is not falling. So in your work now, I assume that you're arguing positively. There has not been. But there are people who would have said that there are opposite views. Have you incorporated those opposing views in the work that you are doing? Have you brought them in to say, this has been argued and blah, 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 blah. However, some group of people argue, and then you consider their argument, their point of view. They argue this. Well, it could be accepted, but we can look at it this other way. This other group of people have said this. Oh, we can look at it. There's something of value in what they are saying, but it's still lacking. Don't forget, argument. Philosophy is argument. You're going to get a PhD in philosophy. So if you don't like arguing, don't do a PhD. Because you're going to be arguing about these things. We need to rush now because I know. So you are challenging the assumptions. Now, I know some of we told you earlier about extending. Don't just extend, because the question is extending the research. Does it actually warrant extending? Does not give you a PhD. Something is missing in all of this, which we've not spoken about earlier. What theory are you basing your work on? And I was trying to create a framework. I couldn't finish, but I'm going to do it, and later maybe share it. It's not here now. And I drew a house. Imagine a house. In my own framework that I'm using, putting all these things together. The foundation of the house is what? Is the theory. So without a theory, at the end of the, okay. Without a particular theory, you are just nowhere. So the theory is your lens, is the way what you are bringing to bear to be able to look at that. So don't just extend research. Question, why do we need to do that? Practical steps. What is everyone taking for granted? What if the opposite were true? They're all looking in one direction. What if the opposite were true? What is missing from the framing? And it's important that we know what is missing from the framing. So challenge the assumptions. Strong gaps are often come from ignored variables. What are the variables? So looking at the construct of the Niger Delta, what are the variables missing in that construct that are being ignored? What are the ignored variables? What are the hidden biases? What are the outdated assumptions that we need to query in all of this? And triangulate the gap. So, which is the point what we were talking about. Like, so if you have been holding on to contextual contribution, you are going to face a challenge. So, can you bring about 2-3 gaps? Exist in literature, impactful problem, feasible to your own study. So, is to bring all the more than one gaps into bear. Try, even if, like he said earlier, that try and attempt it, because one of the key things that is important in the PhD process is rigour. Where you just surface level in your work, or there is serious rigour in which we see your argument against yourself and how you are pulled here and there. All right. Is that slide 14? Quickly now, we need to. Okay, Doctor, I think you just need to switch now.
Then I will come back and then we're going for a class. Okay. All right. Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Olutuae, for that. That was plugging in many areas that this didn't fit in. So, how do we bridge the gap? That's the next question, right? Huh? The journey has been sweet, nice, interesting, so far so good. Jolly, right? Yeah. So, how do we bridge the gap? That answers the question of how do you translate the gap you have identified? You're able to put your finger there, very specific. Okay, supported by literature, right? And it is feasible, it's doable, because there is enough data available to carry, to execute, to implement. Okay, so that now answers the question of brings us to the question of how do you translate this gap into research design? That's the next step. So your gap must inform your research design. So sometimes somebody is struggling with writing down their statement of problem. It's because you have not found the gap. So the gaps of this research, the gaps in literature are 1, 2, 3. You have not done a good job. Do you understand that now?
Yes, sir.
So as long as you are struggling to formulate exactly, I sat there and I was able to pull up from on top of my head a research that was done and concluded 9 years ago. 10 years ago. I was able to pull up. This was the background. This was the problem. This is what was done. So that was because that thing was very specific. You know, when something is so specific to you, you can be waking up from sleep. Even in your unconsciousness, you can say it. Yeah. So as long as you are struggling with this, it means that you don't have a gap yet, or you are not yet there. So, but if you have a gap, problem statement will just be easy peasy. Number 2, your research questions. Developing your questions.
And that formulating the problem is what necessitated today's program. There are some people here who are still finding problem. They're asking you what you've written pages,
Tons.
pages and pages, and so I say, so what is the problem?
And so what? Back to the same
And
question.
if you don't have the problem, you can write it. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Yeah. So your piece of your academic writing becomes boring when we don't know what exactly he's dealing with. Okay, so take the words I'm using, the semantics, very important. Formulate research problem. Develop research questions. Do you see that? So it's not like, okay, my research questions are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From where? They're just hanging in the air. You are developing them from literature. Do you get it? And you see that the research questions, because they are well developed, it's like layered, connected. Everything is connected, right? One leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. Not that one is going this direction, another one is going that direction, and then you are not able to tie everything together. Triangulation is no. Because you didn't develop, you just wrote something or formed something somewhere. Same thing with your hypothesis, right? Next is that you formulate your research objectives. And then you now develop your methodology. So everything you are going to do, in fact, once you have your gap, I will say that you are 50% done. I don't know if anybody is going to challenge that assumption. Yeah, we'll find someone to challenge that assumption. I keep saying that. You find your gap today, you are 50% through your PhD. Somebody should challenge me. Yeah. And that is the truth. Almost the truth. Almost the case for almost anyone. You know your research gap today. Just at that point, you can figure out what is the methodology you are going to design. And when it comes to methodology, it's more of choices, decisions. You're making, I will do this, I will not do this. I will do this, I will not do this. I will use fork, not knife. I will use knife, not spoon. Do you understand? Okay, I will combine fork and knife. It's your choice. It's not because, okay, I will do this. No. You are making choices, and you are making those choices based on what you have done. It is your research gap that informs that. So when you are making a choice, you are supporting with a justification. This is, I'm going to do this, and this is why I'm going to do this. Because, back to what Dr. Olutuae said, you see, even your methodology is informed by research gap. Everything is going back to the thesis statement. Yeah. So, and then when you implement all of that, you come up with a new knowledge. So what is new? You see, we are back to that word. What is novel? So what is new? That is another typical exam question. Take note of that. So what's new about your work? What's new? It's another way of saying, what is your contribution? What contribution is your thesis making to existing knowledge? And then you can break them down into this. It could be a theoretical contribution that will inform practice. It could be a methodological contribution that shapes our approach and to inquiring and investigation. It could be an empirical contribution that is maybe advancing a particular claim or further solidifying or validating a claim or an assumption, as the case may be. Of course, it could also be practical or policy contribution, as the case may be. And you could have a touch of 2 or more of this. Okay? All right. Now, let's link this up to our frameworks. So, gap, and then the next thing we are talking about, framework. 3 framework. The foundation is the theory. What informs your thinking? Your system of thinking is determined by theory. So, when somebody will say, what theory are you using? What theory are you using for your thesis? Okay, so what about it? Why are you using institutional theory?
Most of the work done on survival have used resource-based field,
Okay.
which assumes that battles don't survive because of resources. But then institutional analysis is saying that beyond resources, there are also some norms, some behaviors that are relative to some context. For instance, in an imaginary economy now, even if the CEO has all the resources, which goes with resources here, there are some institutional factors that can impede the survival of the startup.
Okay.
Like regulatory, some regulatory factors which are all under the.
So are you looking at institutional theory from the perspective of external
Yes,
environment or
yes.
internal environment?
External environment.
Okay.
Yes.
So now you see, I've brought in another perspective. How about internal environment? You have all the resources, but the internal structure is not even fitting. Yeah. So you are able to find, okay, yes, people are not, startups suffer with survivor in the first 5 years because lack of resources, da 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 da. But beyond that, those who survived, how did they survive? Can we find explanation for their survival? How do we explain that? So look at what theoretical framework is doing for you. Why does that? Why do certain constructs exist or certain relationships exist? And then you are deriving that because that is helping you to find explanation for those constructs and relationships. So your theoretical framework is basically narrative derived from literature. Do you understand? So when we say theoretical framework, we don't expect you to put a diagram. It's not necessary. It is basically narrative. Okay? Next is your conceptual framework. Now, on the basis of this, you are now saying that these are the constructs I'm dealing with. These are possibly relationships you are dealing with, if you are dealing with relationships. Okay? And then this is presented in form of a diagram. And this is again derived from literature, but now plus your own synthesis. And this is what helps you to operationalize your own research. So you are now moving from explanation and justification to operationalization. Does it make sense? Okay. So if you don't see this, examiners will query you. And if you don't see the connect between these, that one, examiner will question it. And you don't have one and don't have the other. You need to have both.
That's the question I want to ask. Now we just focus on one or two. That's what
No. Okay, you focus on foundation and forget about the body work. That's what you have just asked now. So that is it now, right? Yes. And now this is the guy that is putting the roof on the building. Yeah. Sometimes you also hear empirical analysis of empirical framework. Okay? But analytical framework. So this is where you are thinking about how then do I measure the construct I've been talking about? Whether in form of, whether there is relationship or not, construct is involved, at least one. Yeah, one construct study, okay, is involved. How do I measure that construct? Whether qualitative or quantitative, you need to tell us how you're going to do it. Yeah, and that again is going back to literature. And that ties you back to the instrument you are going to use to measure it. Instrument development. And around instrument development, there is adoption, there's adaptation, there's entirely newly developed instruments. And all the validation process that comes with it, reliability and the rest of it, right? Yeah, so that's methodology realm, okay? So that is why this is bridging you to methodology. So that is what this guy does. So you can't ignore anyone. Where do you start from? That guy. That is where you start from. And then you move, and then you move. So that is Those are the frameworks. But do you see that it is your gap that informs everything, right?
Yes.
It's your gap that tells you should be focusing on this construct, finding explanation for it. What are the relationships? And then, what is your synthesis? You see, that is your gap there. So the gap is the foundation of everything. Okay? All right. Now, key AI tools that you don't want to miss. The time is not there. I would have wished to show you how to use this, and maybe some of them. Semantic Scholar, Research Rabbit, and Elicit, and this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. We do basically the same. Okay? Semantic Scholar, Research Rabbit, Elicit, and Consensus. We basically do the same thing. Some of them are not free, but I think Semantic Scholar is free. Okay? Yeah, some will give you free access, but with some limitations, okay? Again, take notes. Okay, it's frozen. Oh, really? Maybe the battery. Okay, I've got another charger. Oh. Just carefully put it there. Okay. 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 All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Sorry for that break in transmission. So, what we'll do, we'll send you this. I'll send you this document, right? This is hyperlinked. These arrows, they're hyperlinked. So if you click on it, it will just take you straight to the site. And you can even Google it yourself. And then you create an account and then use them. If you are not using Mendeley, I will tell you you are behind time. Yes. You are probably 15 years behind time. Absolutely. Yeah. So this guy will help you. Mendeley is 99% free. You only need to pay when you now want to use the AI component. And that one, it allows you to do limited interaction for a period of a month. Then once you exceed that limit, that cap, you have to wait another month. You have to wait. But you can subscribe, and it's doable. If you know you're going to be using it for maybe 6 months intensively, just do subscription for that period and then do it. But other than that, from the point where you download, install, create account, and then you are uploading your file, I can log on to any system, just log in and continue my work from there. And then I can share my library, I can annotate and stop, close it, come back, continue from exactly where I stopped reading, and then pick up all my anecdotes and then take them and start writing. You see? You can even put those thoughts together, right? And then ask some of these your AI to say, this is what I've written, can you help me rephrase it to sound academic? It's your work. It's only helping you to guide you, to rephrase it, to align it, to make it more suitable. You see that? Can you help me rephrase this my statement of problem? Can you help me rephrase this my objective? It's based on what your synthesis, right? And then it's doing all of that for you. So you can pick all of those anecdotes as raw materials, and draft something out of them, and then put them into your listing, and then help you to restructure. And then you are good to go. Yeah, good to go. Yeah, this guy too will help you in developing especially your search terms when you are trying to develop your search strategy. Okay. Yeah, so 3 things: gap, frameworks, and the AI tools, right? Huh? So a clearly identifiable area needing explanation, extension, or evidence. That is the gap, right? That's the gap. 2, frameworks. That integrates theoretical, conceptual, and empirical framework, right? Okay? And then 3, you should use these AI tools ethically. Which means, if you have used any tools, tell us the tools you use and how you use it and what you use it for. All right? Okay. Yeah. So, research is a journey. Well done. More spirit for the journey. More fuel for the journey, right? And then, remember that your AI tools are only assist, right? They are not the doers. You are the doer. So you are doing the thinking, you are doing the synthesis, you are doing all of those things, but these guys are only assisting you. Is that okay? Okay. I will hand over to Dr. Olutuae, and he will take us to the end of the journey. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Also, it's still on this floor.
Yes, we can share the link with you.
We'll share the link when we.
Yeah, we'll share the link. That's why we struggle to make sure.
That's why we spent 1 hour to try and tackle out.
And the slides. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the slides. You get the slides also. So we've been talking about gap. Remember, we have thesis statements. You should actually have a gap statement also. So if you don't have a gap statement, what is it you are feeling? So convert your idea into a clear statement. Articulate your idea into a clear statement. Example. Existing research has focused on entrepreneurship, business performance, business survivor.
Yeah, I conducted a systematic literature review of about 80 articles,
Mm.
and 63 of those papers was just addressing business performance. That was the outcome of it.
Mm.
And 63 of it, only 17 addressed business survival.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I see it like more attention is needed to how business survival.
Okay. Well done. But you only did 83, whereas there are millions of articles. So that is not a sufficient study of your systematic review to be able to justify that is there, because you only did 83.
And apart from that, you also need to be more articulate. So, yes, even if you do more outcomes, so the question now is, why do you think we should focus more on what people are not focusing?
Yeah.
So that is the additional 1 meter difference.
Yeah. For me, business survival is a foundational outcome for other outcomes to sit on.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, business must survive first before you talk about the profitability index.
Okay.
Before you talk about business performance. So if you want to say business are performing, they are going to be sustainable. It has to pass through the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We should be able to look at business surviving first before we just, because the business has come up and we just feel that this business is just not making profit. How does it make profit over that? How does it?
Why should we care about business performance?
You care
The
about
bigger, you've not talked about the bigger picture.
the bigger picture now is I care about business survival because they are foundational to economic development. They provide jobs for teeming population. They also reduce poverty in the land. So if we don't struggle to see how businesses stay operational, especially beyond the first 5 years of operation,
Well, it's an interesting debate, but there are other issues that could be taken up.
The time is not there. I can take you on this and ask you a lot of questions.
Mm.
That we're able to just keep moving further and further and further and further. But also mind to use academic language concepts when you speak or write it. So it still comes back to that same question. And so yes, okay. So we need to focus on business survival because we know that okay, yeah, that's all right. Okay, that's okay. So what happens? So what? Yeah. So don't worry. Just unwind after now, then go back to this and begin to reflect again and again and again and again.
Or then
Apply some of these things.
then you can now use also to get to that bottom of the 5 whys. Why are businesses not surviving for 5 years? You answered. Why has that happened? You answered. Why is that a case? You answered. Why is it like that? You answered. Why is it like that? You are like you're talking about. You keep digging and digging until you are able to get to the base of the implications of what you are saying. So existing research has focused on X, using Y in context Z, but has not adequately addressed specific gap. What is it? Is it theoretical? Is it empirical? Is it context-based? Is it methodological? So you just need to explain which limits our understanding. Can you see? The argument that this limits our understanding about entrepreneurship or about entrepreneurship survival in the first 5 years. For example, so if you can write this clearly, still the gap is not ready yet. We are still working on that. We are still on the way. So turn the gap into research questions, which is one of the framework I was giving you earlier. Talking about you are only trying to now validate the gap. What are the questions and what are the methodology you are going to be able to get those questions. So the common mistakes people do, you pick a topic before you understand the field, which is the reason why, for those who I'm supervising, that's the reason why I felt today need to be organized. You have picked a topic, but you don't understand the field, and you are arguing, and I say, what are you arguing? You don't understand the field yet, and you're already saying you're going to be doing leadership, sense making. How? Why? Why do we care? Confusing interesting with researchable. As good as the thing might be, it might not be researchable. Choosing a gap that is too broad, or ignoring the feasibility, the data, the time, and the skill. Or, even though we have told you today about follow the research, further research is needed. You might actually be blindly following further research without critiquing the work. In as much as they've told us further research is needed, why do we need further research? Like you told me now, 86 out of millions of publications in the field. What can we do? So there must be, for the PhD to be successful, there must be breadth and depth. Breadth of the papers you are consulting, and the depth in the way you are consulting and critiquing those particular papers. So, quickly, I'm trying to find the document I sent to you earlier.
What document? Okay, it's downloaded.
Oh, it's downloaded already?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let me get it in the download folder. So we want to just quickly do in the short time, very, very short time we have. Maybe we'll just send this, we might send this document also to you to say, All right. So if we, well, maybe it's even good because I'm trying to normalize that. So let's pick an example. Put your research, plug your research into that and see. Practical example, you are trying to build a roadmap of sustainability. Maybe your research is on sustainability. And very interesting, that video I showed you that I recorded about some years ago, I know I picked sustainability. I don't know it was sustainability, I also picked it, so I don't know. So don't pick a topic here because you want to understand the terrain, the breadth. So what kind of sustainability? Is it in the aspect of environmental systems, social, economic sustainability, or corporate organizational sustainability, or technology and sustainability, or policy and governance? Can you see how just sustainability? So look at your own research. You are looking at one particular area. There are actually other areas in which that work will be done. And it's possible that your Vival external examiner is in one other area, not in the area what you did it, and that is what he will be boxing you, pummeling you into his own research. Your ability to hold your corner and say, well, I know there are other areas, but this is the area of what I did for my research is important. So from those areas, you now pick 2 or 3 clusters of those. I'm interested in corporate sustainability out of all the various fields, plus technology and policy. So I want 3 areas. That combination already creates a good ground. So just sitting in one corner, perhaps what you are looking, there's no depth in what you are doing. You're just in one micro area. And you will not be able to find a lot of work to be able to do something significant. So do a focused literature scan, which we saw earlier about. If I'm focusing on those 3 things, terms like ESG effectiveness, remember it mentioned rabbit scholar or census will help you come up with keywords. So you need keywords. So based on those keywords, you now search and track what you are doing again. You are coming back to those research questions. Remember that? Method, context, findings, limitations. Now, you are looking for a pattern density. Quickly, so you are looking for pattern density. You are spotting the difference in sustainability. You quickly notice the signs. Every reliance on case studies, Mr. Case Study. Focus on developed countries. Overuse of self-reported ESG metrics. Somebody is reporting the fact of, if you look at behavioral theory, some people actually tell lies when they report, or they are biased. So when you look at that, you say, well, lots of conceptual frameworks, fewer real-world tests of these frameworks. So example, most ESG studies use secondary data sets and regression models in the US and EU context. That's your first signal. It's not yet a gap, but it should at least you are going in a good direction. So you are now mining the limitations. This is where sustainability papers are especially revealing. You see a recording statement like, we've done all this earlier. So there could be geographical bias, lack of causal evidence, so missing behavioral dimensions, and weak impact. We will send these things to you because you now need to translate that gap into those 4. Where do you sit? Empirical, methodological. So ESG claims exist, but real environmental impact isn't measured well. Methodology, heavy use of correlational studies, little causal inference or experiment. If it is context, north or south, Mr. North and South again. Theoretical. So sustainability assumes rational decision making. It ignores the human behavior. The example of what was given earlier about the woman doing something on psychology, about the issue of, so those are kind of theoretical arguments. So contradictional gaps. Some studies says ESG improves performance, misses performance. So others says it does not. So what are you doing? Push beyond the obvious. What if ESG metrics are fundamentally flawed? What if sustainable behavior isn't driven by awareness at all? What if firms optimize for appearance, not impact? What if corporate social responsibility, community engagement, and all blah, blah, blah is only just to put them for people to know that they are good, not because they intentionally want to implement it? Not that they want to make the environment good, but they just want to show on paper and to do PR that they are good. So now you are no longer just extending research, you are questioning the foundations. And as you are questioning the foundations, you are looking at, here are 3 realistic PhD gaps. Let's say ESG versus real world impact, empirical and methodology. You can see how you are trying to ensure that you don't just do one and just sit down there. You are trying to edge yourself. So lack of causal evidence linking ESG. I think we will send all this to you, and then you can. But I think it's been a good day, isn't it?
More than that.
We'll send. So what's a strong final gap? What does it look like? Existing sustainability research has focused heavily on ESG performance metrics using correlational methods in developed markets, but has not adequately established whether these metrics reflect actual environmental impact, limiting their reliability for policy and investment decisions. Can you see that is sounding more like a thematic statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
So somebody can argue with you on that. Somebody can take you up on that, and then you can now begin to unpack your variable. All right. So, well, I think I'll